Hey everyone, hope you're doing well over winter break. I really do hope you're having a good holiday. You're spending time with family, friends, making those memories that when you get a little bit older like me, you're going to look back on very fondly. Hug every one of your family members. That's the biggest part of Christmas. But I do want to kind of cover a little bit of information in a video that's completely optional. I know with the winter assignment, y'all should be already working on it. If you're not, you need to kind of catch up because we're going to be back in session before you know it. It's going to sneak up on you. Now, there are two chapters that I'm asking you to read, 23 and 24. With 23, there's one really important thing I want to kind of cover and really tease out because it's difficult to understand. Some of the things we're going to be dealing with in the next couple of units are kind of complex economic theories, what happens with supply and demand, and not only with that, with fiscal versus monetary policy and which political parties are dealing with which issues, what are their bases feeling about those things. So it's really important we have a good idea of what's going on. And in chapter 23, one of the big issues in the politics of the 1870s and 1880s and into the 1890s is our fiscal, or not our fiscal policy, our monetary policy. Now, there is a difference. Fiscal policy is basically with all the money that comes into the government from taxes and how we're spending that money. It's what most people think about when they think about the government and their cash and what's coming out of their paycheck and what's the government doing with it, whether they're doing the wrong things with it, whether they're doing the right things with it. That's fiscal policy. Monetary policy today, a lot of people, when they mention monetary policy, it's all about the Fed, the Federal Reserve, which is essentially a new Bank of the United States. They coin money, well, they don't coin the money, that's through the Mint, but they basically, with interest rates and other mechanisms, they toggle the money supply to kind of make inflation and deflation work for our economy. And again, inflation, deflation. Inflation is a rise in the prices of goods. Deflation is a drop in prices of goods. We're going to be using that over and over and over till the end of the class. So again, and we're going to cover this in class 2, but inflation is a rise in the price of goods. Deflation is a downward slope, a decrease in the price of goods. Obviously, you see a lot more inflation than deflation. There's a couple different reasons for that. All right, but let's get into it because it's kind of mind-boggling at some point, parts of it. All right, so the two issues here we're dealing with is tight monetary policy versus loose monetary policy. And I actually want to come back to this slide. Really what I want to do is I want to get into supply and demand, and not really supply and demand as far as products, but supply and demand and how it's being impacted if we throw more money into the system. Now, basic economic theory says that supply and demand drive the prices of goods. So if you have a high supply and a low demand, you're not really the price for that good is going to have to drop until people buy it and buy up all of it. They consume all of the good and there's nothing left. And that price has to drop until it gets to that point. But there's a perfect point where supply and demand meet and all those goods are sold. Well, let's see what happens when we throw money into the system, because this is really what we're talking about in the 1860s and 1870s. We're talking about throwing more money into the system. So I like to do this with the bread example. Here we go. We got some bread. Nice, yummy bread. It's getting a little stale on me since I've had it sitting out for a couple minutes. But we got two people vying for this bread. This is the last piece of bread at the store. All right. If you don't get it, your family's going to starve. So you best get this bread. Or, I don't know, grab grass and start eating that. I have no idea what you're going to be doing. All right, but that's the last piece. I got two guys, Moneybags Mike and Hungry Hank. So what's the going price for the bread? All right. it's got to be set to where one of these guys is going to be able to beat out the other one. So if the price is set at $1 for this piece of bread, Mike is going to be able to buy it, and Hank is going to be able to buy it. So it's really whoever gets there first will be able to buy this bread. The market says that's only one person can be able to buy this. I mean, Hank can be over here with his $1 trying to get it. So essentially, it's going to be Moneybags Mike, but the price for the bread is going to be $2. We're simplifying here. Really, it's 101, but $2. Hank can't do anything. He's going to, look at his face over here. He's going to go hungry because he doesn't have enough cash to make the purchase. But Moneybags Mike will. Alright, so we're kind of seeing how this goes. This nothing dealing with gold or silver or inflation, deflation here. But let's say that the government is looking at the situation, and for some reason, one way or the other, they decide to throw more money into the system. They've found a whole bunch of gold or silver, and they're just printing it and making more and more money, and they're putting it into the economy, and everybody's getting this money. It's trickling down and trickling out, and everybody's got this cash. Now, Mike has 3 times as much, right? And I really should have done an extra one over here for Hank. Let's do that right quick, because really he's going to have triple too. Alright, so we've fixed the system here. A little bit of editing problem on my side. But basically, the amount of money in the system has tripled. Well, that means Hungry Hank has got $3 now, and Moneybags Mike has got, what? He's got 12? If I'm doing this right, yeah, 12. What's the price of bread? The price of bread has got to be something where Hungry Hank cannot buy it. So the price of bread has gone up to $4 from $2. It's doubled in price. Alright? Yeah, it's doubled in price. Alright? And we'll see how this works later. But again, more money into the system, what does it cause? It causes a rise in the price of goods. So that's going to be inflation. Keep that in the back of your mind, because let's take a look at the monetary policies again. Alright, so tight monetary policy, the gold standard. This is going to prevent our example from happening. It's going to prevent that inflation of prices. Alright, so the value of the coins, the value of the money is going to stay stable. Alright, so you know what a gold coin is worth, what it can buy for you, what its purchasing power is. Purchasing power is essentially, okay, you got this $1, you go into the store, what does it buy you? Does it buy you a loaf of bread? Or does it buy you all the groceries that you need for that week? Right, that's purchasing power there. Right, so for the gold standard, people who are going to like these are going to be people who have established businesses that they need to know into the future what things are going to be, what prices they're going to have to pay for all the things that are coming into their plant, and then how much are they going to be able to get at market for it. Right, bankers are also going to enjoy the gold standard, and the key reason for that is that they are putting out money, right, in a loan, right, they're giving out loans with the assumption that they're going to be paid back at a later date, plus interest. But the issue is, if that value of that dollar that they lent out through inflation has got less purchasing power, then there's no real reason for them to make that loan, because what's going to happen is they're going to have less purchasing power for making that loan when they get it paid off. And that's not really how banks work. Banks are a business. They're trying to make money. They're trying to make value. So if that dollar through inflation has gotten less value, right, and a lot less value, then the whole system's thrown out of whack for bankers. And without bankers, big businesses can't work, right? Because they can't expand their business, they can't build infrastructure. All those things are going to be a huge issue. Now, on the other hand, though, there are people who do like inflation. If you're a farmer, if you're a small business owner or an entrepreneur just starting out, and you don't have a lot of inputs into your business, let's say for a farmer, let's take them for example, they're going to be the famous example. Farmer doesn't really have a whole lot of stuff going into his business as far as things he has to pay for, especially in the 1870s. In the 1870s, if you already have your house, you already have your land, you got old Bessie, right? Really all you have to do is buy the seed and some of the tools, right? So the price for goods that you're buying aren't really going to matter to you all that much. Also, another thing is if you're a pretty good farmer, you're not going to have to buy a whole lot of food either. So you're not worrying about the price of food at market as far as what you have to buy it for. Now, what it sells for is always on your mind. And therein lies where inflation is going to be good for farmers especially. Because if you don't have a whole lot of expenses going out, but through inflation, you can sell these crops for a much higher price than they brought in last year. Oh, you're just rolling in the cash, right? You've become 3 times better businessmen, and all that's happened is the government has increased the amount of cash in the system. Right? If you have a loan from the bank over here, you can pay that bank off so much quicker if you have more money in the system. Right? So let's take a look. I know that kind of went over it really simply. Let's take a look at an example. All right, so 1871, let's take a look at 2 different kind of situations. One in which we're going to follow the gold standard for 10 years, and the other one we are following the greenback standard, where we're going to have all these greenbacks still in money, and greenback is a fiat currency, and we'll talk about that in a second. But basically what it means is the amount of currency in the system is much larger. So if we follow the gold standard, we're talking about wagon, we're going to peg it, we're going to compare a good just to kind of see what's happening with the value of those goods and how it's going to impact, especially bankers. Bankers, big time. All right, so bankers and farmers. 1871, the price of a wagon is $250. Interest rate is 10%. All right, only gold can be used as a currency. The price is going to stabilize or possibly decline. Some farmers are going to fail to pay their debts because they have less income. Farms are foreclosed on, which is bad for the bank, but the issue with the bank is if the farm is foreclosed on, they get the farm and they can sell that and recoup their money. Maybe not all of it, and definitely not what they would get as far as the long-term health of that loan, but at least they can get some of that money back. They are protected. Right? The loans are paid back at 10%, so in the end of that 10 years, the bank gets $275 for that $250 loan, and the cost of the wagon is still $250. So the bank has basically made $25 profit off that loan over 10 years. Doesn't seem like a whole lot, but let's take a look at the other situation. Now that same 10 years under the greenback, all right, so greenbacks are a fiat currency, and we'll talk about that in the next slide, but with greenbacks in the economy, it's going to increase the money supply, vastly increase the money supply. So let's say that its prices are jumping up 3 times. Farmers are okay with this. They don't have a whole lot of inputs into their system, right? All they got to buy is seed, and now they're getting 3 times as much cash for their wheat when they go to market. So they've got money hand over fist, and they're able to pay back their loans really, really quickly, and it doesn't hurt them as much to pay those loans back. They pay that loan back at 10%. The bank can't increase the interest rates once that loan is taken out. This isn't an APR. It's not an adjustable rate mortgage, ARM. So the bank gets their $275, but remember the price of goods has tripled in that 10 years. So we take a look at that cost of the wagon. Oh yeah, good job, bank. You got $275, but what it bought, you can't buy anymore. Now, your purchasing power of that money has drastically decreased. Down to $750 is what it costs to buy a wagon now. Good job, bank. Good job. All right, and this is why banks hated and hate the loose monetary system. All right, so gold versus silver versus fiat. So since we've been taking a look at precious metals and using them as currency, we got to take a look at the metals and why we kind of use those for money. This goes back to ancient times. Why is gold used as a monetary system? It helps when we don't have to. The reason why we have cash currency is to help when we're trying to make trades for different goods, right? We don't have to figure out what the guy selling a chicken wants in return and go and trade for that and then trade for the chicken. We can just hand him over some money, and then he can go to whoever he needs to get stuff from and then take that money to them. It's a common good that everybody sees as having value, so it facilitates trade. Now, gold is going to be one of those. It's kind of the gold standard of currency. It's precious. There's not a whole lot of it out there. It has some inherent value as far as people like it. It's shiny, it's malleable, it can be made into things, and it retains its value well. It's not going to fluctuate up and down, right, a whole lot. It's going to stay steady, so people can trust and invest in it really well. Silver is less precious. It's still a precious metal, and still a lot of people like it for currency, all right, but it's less precious, especially in the United States in the 1870s. We're finding whole mountains of it in Nevada. 16 times as much silver as the gold. But still people are pushing for us to use silver in our money system as well, because it'll increase the amount of cash out there. It'll help the farmers, help the small business guys out. So that's one of the things, the complications with silver put in there. Now, the money that you have in your pocket today is pretty much fiat currency. It's not backed by any gold or silver. It's just got full faith and credit of the U.S. government is going to pay a debt in that currency if ever needed to. So monetary policies in this era that we're talking about, post-Civil War era, 1870s to the 1890s. During the Civil War, the government had an issue, right? They need money for the war, right? Not only, well, they don't need money for the war, they need the goods for the war. They need the bullets, they need the gunpowder, they need the trains, they need the tracks laid, they need pensions and salaries paid. And it's a whole lot more money than they have gold to kind of fund this issue. All right, so what they're going to do is they're going to create the greenbacks, and your greenbacks have no gold or silver backing to them. They've just money because the government says it's money. And they print these, and this helps win the war for the North. They have a lot of this cash on hand. They can pay it to somebody, right? That person has a belief that the government is going to honor this cash as currency, so then they use it to pay their debts, and it just keeps flowing. It keeps the economy flowing, whereas if we didn't have this paper currency, once the gold ran out, the government's not going to be able to pay anybody else. So it keeps this economy rolling. Now, after the Civil War, remember those bankers and those big businessmen are concerned about inflation. They want to get these greenbacks out of the system so that there's more stability in the economy. So they're pushing for the Republican Party to recall these greenbacks, and they start to do that. 1873, the gold standard, or at least gold as the official currency, is going to be solidified in an act. 1875, we're going to start to withdraw those greenbacks from circulation, trying to eliminate that fiat currency. However, there's a strong pushback from Democrats, especially the ones that are have a lot of that farmers backing. The Democrat Party is now kind of morphing into a pro-farmer party. So they're going to push back, and they're going to gain the House of Representatives. And in 1878, you're going to have the formation of another political party, the Greenback Party. 1878 is also when you're going to have the Bland-Allison Act, and what this does is it's going to force the government to buy silver. We've got those silver mines out west. A couple of different things are going on here. One, farmers want more money into this system, and small business owners do. They want more money into that system to increase inflation. They can pay off their debts, get out from underneath the big bad banks. But the other thing is, silver mines really want this act as well, because it's going to be good to have a standard buyer. This is going to force the government to buy $2 to $4 million in silver every single month. So if you're a silver mine operator, pay them. I got some money coming in next month. They got to buy from me. Right, because they need that silver to coin money. Right, in the 1890s, though, the Silver Purchase Act is going to force the government to buy even more, 4.5 million ounces, not cash, but ounces, which is going to increase in value. However, the issue with the Sherman Silver Purchase Act is that the trade-in amounts, the exchange rates, basically allowed people to trade in silver for gold at an advantage. So basically, they were trading in not really all that valuable silver for really valuable gold at close to the same rates. So then they would take that gold, they would purchase more silver, and then they would buy up all the government's gold. So 3 years later, we kind of figured, hey, that was probably a mistake on our part, and we're going to get it repealed. All right, so a quick overview. Adding more money to an economy causes inflation. Farmers and entrepreneurs are happy with that because they can pay their loans off quicker. Banks definitely don't like it because the money that they're getting back from those loans, if they're paid back in 10 years, there's going to be less value for it. There's going to be less purchasing power. Remember that the wagon, right? $250, 10 years later, $750. The loan brings back $275, but the bank isn't going to be able to really do anything with that money. All right, adding silver into the monetary supply is going to increase inflation as well, and this is going to become a significant political controversy in the 1870s and 80s. The Republicans are going to take up the gold bug side of this. The Democrats and the Greenbacks are going to bring up the silverite position. When we get to the Populist Party, you're going to see this over and over again as well. And money today, kind of looking into the future, money today is backed by nothing. We have fiat currency. So this gold and silver issue is not a political controversy anymore, because ever since the 1930s, 1940s, our money, nothing. It's just, well, not nothing. Right? Yeah, the government says it's money, so we believe it's money, so we use it as money. Right. All right. So that's the gold, silver issues, monetary issues in the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s. 22 minutes.